is Chris Postel, and this is my Module 3 Milestone assignment. For this assignment, my product from the market is milk, or it's my good. And I use this product because everyone knows what it is, and I can relate to it to everyone pretty easily. Here is my starting with the perfect competition and everything supply and demand curve. The equilibrium price is $12 for 6 gallons of milk. The 6 gallons of milk is the quantity that is at the equilibrium point. If you're above this point, you'll have a surplus, and if you're below this point, you'll have a shortage. This is the start of the 3 demand curve shifts, and all 3 have different numbers, and I'll explain all 3. The supply curve will stay the same on all 3. This is the demand curve shift for tastes, and it doesn't mean that the milk tastes different. It means that people think of milk differently, pretty much. For my scenario, I said that a study came out saying that milk wasn't as good for you as we thought. It doesn't have as much calcium and all this stuff. So the equilibrium price dropped because the demand dropped to $11.50 and 5.5 gallons of milk. And this makes sense because when your demand drops with no change to the supply, your quantity and your price has to go down to accommodate. On this graph, it is a change in a related good. And for the related good, I use the complement, which is cereal. Because whenever you have cereal, you have milk. So in my scenario, cereal had skyrocketed in price. So people don't buy cereal as much. Therefore, the demand for milk is going to go down because not as many people are going to want to buy milk. So the equilibrium price on this graph is $10 for 5 gallons of milk. Remember, we started at $12 for 6 gallons of milk. Although the price per gallon is the same, the quantity and price has come down. For this scenario, I am dealing with expectations. So for this expectation, I am saying that people are not wanting to buy milk right now because someone forecasted that there's an excess of milk coming, so prices are going to go down. So if you know the prices are going to go down later, then you're not going to buy more right now. So therefore, the demand is going to shift downward. And the price, the equilibrium price, is $9 for 4.5 gallons of milk. Now I'm going to talk about shifts in the supply curve, but the demand curve stays the same. For this supply shift, I chose technology as this scenario. And the technology difference would be that there's a new way to milk cows that's better, faster, and quicker for farmers. So there's going to be more supply out there, so it's going to shift the supply curve to the right. And with this shift, there will be the equilibrium price will be $8, as well as the gallons of milk. The quantity will be $8. Remember, we started at $12 and 6 gallons of milk. So now the price has come down and the quantity has gone up because of the shift of the supply curve to the right. This is a supply shift due to the input price, which in this scenario would be grain, because you need to feed the cow something and you would feed them grain. So if grain went down, if grain went down in price, then it would be cheaper for the farmers to provide the milk. So that would shift the supply curve to the right because they will want to supply more since it's cheaper for them to make it. This will bring the price down to $6 for 9 gallons of milk. That's a lot cheaper than the starting price or the starting equilibrium price of $12 for 6 gallons of milk. For my third scenario, there is a change in sellers, which means there's a growth in sellers. Like Borden's bought more farmers that make milk. So there's more sellers out there. And since there's more sellers, there's going to obviously be more supply. And with the more supply, that shifts the supply curve to the right. For this example, their milk per price equilibrium is $9.75, and that is for 7¼ gallons of milk. Now I'm going to start dealing with shifts in the supply and demand curve at the same time. For this scenario, of milk, the technology and taste both change. The technology, remember, is the supply shift because there's an easier, faster way to milk cows, and the taste, which says that people don't like milk as much because it yellows the teeth and it's bad for you and doesn't help you sleep and all this stuff. So with this happening, with a shift to the right of the supply curve and a shift to the left of the demand curve, we now are at 7. The price is at $7 and the quantity equilibrium is 7½ gallons. For this one, it's the related goods and input price, which, if you remember, is cereal, which is the demand curve, and input price is the supply curve, which was the grain goes down in price. This leads to the equilibrium price being $5 and the equilibrium quantity being roughly 7½. 6½. And this makes sense because, if you remember right, the input really shifted the supply curve, and the related goods shifted the demand curve a lot too. So everything went down a ton in this scenario. And finally, this is the supply and demand curve for milk expectations and sellers. So remember, the expectations is that the price is going to come down later, so we're not going to buy it now. Therefore, the demand shifts to the left, and the supply shifts to the right because there's more sellers in the market now. This leads to the equilibrium price going from $12 for 6 gallons of milk to $7 and 5½ gallons of milk. Thank you so much.